Here's the deal with corporate clients. Not all corporate clients are created equally. In fact, some will be the lifeblood of your business, while others will drain you. It'll feel like the death of your business. So in this video, we're going to cover the top 3 qualities that you'll want to look for in a great partnership with a corporate client, as well as some red flags for indicators for relationships that you might want to avoid. I'm LizJSimpson, accompanied by our amazing Big Money Movement coaches, Cheryl Parks and Heather Petherick. But Cheryl, I want to kick it off to you first. When we talk about corporate clients and great partnerships, what's one thing you look for in a great relationship?
So I have to say, I view sales as being a lot like dating, right? So first of all, pay attention to people that pay attention to you, right? And things like you really want to have that vibe, that partnership vibe. They want to work with you, you want to work with them. It's very conversational, very productive. But then there's also the piece about red flags, right?
Right.
So someone speaking disrespectfully to you or your team member, and I don't mean once, I mean like creating a habit of speaking disrespectfully, or maybe also setting expectations way too high. They want too much in too short a period of time. And that lets you know that they could be walking down the path of becoming a PITA client and or, like in dating, not a great partner.
Yeah.
I love that you say sales is synonymous to dating, because it is.
Yeah.
Like when we think about the steps in the sales process, right? So you're trying to attract someone to your company at first, and you're having these discovery conversations to see what they're looking for, and making sure that there's alignment, and then you propose, like you're putting a ring on it, you know what I mean? So it is so synonymous with dating, and just like a healthy dating relationship, I do agree that you want to pay attention. And I think, like, when we talk about the women that we serve in the Big Money Movement who are looking to land corporate clients, one of the challenges can be if we're real, like when you have a business and you want money, sometimes you overlook those things because you really want the money.
You need to pay the
for your
bills.
business, you know? We call it commission breath in sales. You're like, please, I need to pay. Mama got to pay the mortgage.
Right.
Mama got to, but also like knowing that how you start something is oftentimes the tone of the relationship, and being mindful that you still want it to be a partnership.
There's got to be chemistry, but there's also got to be alignment in expectations. And if either of those are off or funky, that's a red flag.
Agreed. It'll drain you. Also, we talk about like the women in the Big Money Movement and some of the red flags that we see. There are many times where they'll come to us and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm getting the runaround, or things aren't moving forward. We've been talking for months. And one thing that we'll uncover is you're actually not even talking to the decision maker. Right. So they're playing telephone, like when you were a kid, and like, did you guys play that game where it's like
goes on forever?
And then by the time it's like you keep passing this message on, and so when the first person who started the message talks to the person at the end, they're like, this has been so distorted. And I think that can happen when you're working with corporate clients as well. It's like making sure that you are in contact with the individuals who are going to be impacted by the change, who can champion the change, who have what we call the purse power to say yes to the change. Because oftentimes you'll find yourself frustrated because you're really not even in conversation with the right individuals.
Yeah, you get excited, you think the deal is coming to the finish line, only to realize, oh wait, there's a key decision maker that hasn't been involved. How frustrating is that?
Yes. Totally. What are your thoughts, Heather, on another quality?
Yeah, one of the things I always look for in a corporate client is they've got to already be bought in. I call it, they need to be believers in the process already, because how frustrating and how much time often is wasted if you're coming to a corporate client who isn't even sold on the initiative or the strategy or the philosophy behind it, right? If they aren't already believers, and what I mean by that is, have they done enough research? Do they know that they're suffering from this pain or this problem? Are they problem aware? And not only that, but can they get behind the solution or the approach that I'm suggesting? Are they already believers, or am I going to have to spend the next 6 months to a year fostering that belief so that they can then have the motivation to actually say, yes, Heather, I want to work with you. I want to have someone else or even themselves do their own pre-education and developing that belief so that I can get onto the business of doing business.
Yeah, and that can be so frustrating when you have someone who's cut the check, they said yes to the engagement, but it's an uphill battle to create the impact that they said they wanted because they were never bought into your approach in the first place.
Or just as frustrating is when you see the problem so clearly, but they are blind to it. And you know how much value you could bring and how much good impact you could make, but they just aren't there yet, right? I call it being like too far. They're just coming to the runway, and I need corporate buyers that are already like picking up speed and ready for takeoff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to take some ownership too, because I know with the individuals watching this, I think part of that is the entrepreneur's responsibility. Like we teach our women in positioning, right? So when you're positioning your brand, you are, how are you putting out content that attracts those who are problem aware?
Yes.
And they're like, oh, you get the status quo. There's a quote, and I'm sure on the spot I'm going to mess it up, but it's that the better that you're able to articulate a problem, the more that the buyer believes you have the solution. Right? And so when you're creating your positioning, your value in the marketplace, how well are you speaking to that status quo so that you attract problem-aware buyers? But also, are you sharing insights for those who have a problem but don't really know like what path to take, so that you're also educating them on your approach?
Yeah.
And that's where I think intellectual property and making sure the market knows your unique approach to the problem is important.
100%.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I want to talk about another situation that comes up with the women that we serve, which is they identify these red flags, but they're so afraid to say goodbye.
Yeah, or no thanks.
Decline.
Yeah.
And so this reminds
Next.
reminds me of a client, and I'm not going to say her name just because this may have not been the best situation. Let's call her Barbara.
Barbara.
Right. Barbara.
Let's call her Barbara. But I'll never forget when Barbara joined the big money movement, and she didn't have bandwidth to take on any other clients because she had one client who was taking up all of her time. But we did critiques, and we were looking at her business, and we realized this one client was completely the engagement was completely underpriced,
Yeah.
undervalued. Do y'all want to talk about just like that process with Barbara and what happened and how we helped her get over that?
Yeah, so I'll start. What I was most impressed with is, number one, the fact that she brought it to us,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of times we're in it and we're thinking we're doing it right and I can do this, I can manage it. And you don't want to talk about the fact that this is problematic for your business. The mere fact that she was able to bring it to the group, bring it to the weekly Q&A, and we were able to dissect the problem, really take a look at what her client was doing and give her some thoughts. And then I'm going to add this in before we toss it to one of the other of us. She took action.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was a big
Yes.
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to jump in and give credit to Barbara, because when she brought this to the group, to the Q&A call, she was candid in saying, I have a sense that this isn't going well, right? I can't afford to I don't have time to take on another client. And even the relationship and the nature of the work is stressful. And it was being able for her to articulate, I have a sense that this isn't the best for my business and I'm not loving this. And we were able to reflect that back and really say, well, what is it about this relationship and the structure of this work that isn't working for you? And give her space to really not vent, but really air the frustrations, hear them for herself. And you could see in that moment, like she realized, I'm not whining, I'm not complaining. This really isn't a good situation.
Right.
And then we were able as a group to give her tangible steps and language of how to evolve that relationship. That was cool.
I'll have to admit, so basically in that conversation of evolving the relationship, our recommendation was that this relationship, this engagement needs to end.
Yes.
And so legally, Barbara was in a place where she could hard stop the engagement. And so that was our recommendation. But I will admit that, when we talk about working with clients, there was an emotional connection for Barbara. And so as we were talking her through these steps, candidly, I was like, oh my gosh, is she going to do this?
Yeah.
Like just from the look on her face, I'm like, I
Right.
know this is going to be an emotional burden. Will she go through with it?
Yeah.
And to your point about action, the next week, Barbara came back and she said that she had the conversation. And she said that it was a fruitful, productive conversation. And the client actually said that they knew.
They knew all this time.
They knew they were underpriced and undervalued.
Yeah.
So they actually were celebrating her discernment to
Yeah.
say,
And her courage to stand up and say, this is no longer okay.
Right.
all right, so who wants to share the
Yeah.
best part of what happened after this?
I think
vote?
you should start.
Yes.
So the best part about this is that the next week, Barbara had this conversation and released this client. And literally within 2 weeks after that, Barbara had brought in 2 new clients who were larger deals. And since then, Barbara has been consistently bringing in new opportunities and closing business. And I think just it goes back to just the thought and philosophy of life is that sometimes we have to make room for the abundance we want. Sometimes we have to make decisions to say no to something so that we can make room for those things we actually say we want in our lives.
Yeah, 100%. You've got to say no to what's not fitting so that you can make room for what is a perfect fit. Yeah.
I love it. Kudos to you, Barbara. You know who you are. If you are watching this video and you're like, oh my gosh, I want fruitful corporate partnerships, how do I reach out to them? How do I engage the right corporate clients? You're in luck, because if you click on the next video, in that video, we'll share our secret sauce for how to profitably and productively and successfully engage corporate clients. Click that next video and we'll see you there. Bye.